Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami Sangham Sharanam Gacchami Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami Sangham Sharanam Gacchami Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami Sangham Sharanam Gacchami Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami Sangham Sharanam Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami Sangham Sharanam
Dumba Jumden de Jen Java Tajumba Yandava Zobe Sanje Rigwa Dan Shamsu Demba Dewara Jeva Jiden Jemba Jevo Dube Galo Jorva Lana Meba Lada Menamje Dumba Sanje Jumden de Pejawa Shaja Duba La Chaze Lo Chodo Japsu Che Wo Dumba Chumden De Deshe Shewa Jajumba Yandaba Zobe Sanje Riba Dan Shamsu Demba Devara Sheba Chikden Chemba Jebu Dube Kalo Yorba Lana Meba Lada Menamje Dumba Sanje Chumden De Pejawa Shaja Duba La Chaze Lo Chodo Jazo Che Wo Dumba Chumden De Deshe Shewa Jajumba Yandaba Zobe Sanje Rigba Dan Shamsu Temba Devara Sheba Jigden Kemba Jebu Dube Kalo Jurwa Lana Meba Lada Menamje Domba Sanje Jumden De Pejawa Shaja Tuba La Shazelo Chudo Jabzu Je Sanje Chudan Soje Chonama La Chanju Badu Tani Jamsu Che Dagi Chushe Jebe Sonama Je Dola Penje Sanje Drubara Sho Sanje Chudan Soje Chonama La Janju Badu Dani Jamsu Che Dagi Chushe Jebe Sonama Je Drola Benje Sanje Drobara Sho Sanje Chudan Soje Chonama La Chanju Bado Dani Japso Che Dagi Chushin Jibe Sonamanje Drola Penje Sanje Drobara Sho. Good morning. How was your week? So today we have 2 slides remaining on the topic of perseverance. So before we dive into that topic, I thought to do a short exercise. So this exercise is to really reflect on how we spend our time. So let's begin the exercise by rewinding our life for the past 1 week, just 1 week, starting from yesterday. Rewind your past 7 days, go back as far as possible, and go through each day and replay. So let's spend maybe a few minutes. What did you do yesterday when you opened your eyes? What was the first thing you did? And then after that, what did you do? So try to recollect as much as possible. You may not remember what you did the last Monday, but you can recall what you did yesterday and the day before yesterday. So try to go through each hour or each activity that you did in the past week. And then we will discuss. Let's spend maybe 2 minutes. Okay, so now let's look at the activities that you did last week. So among those, how many are virtuous deeds? How many are non-virtuous? How many are worldly? How many are spiritual? And how long or how much time did we have spent on real Dharma practice? For most of us, it will be a very little time. Most of our time was taken or spent on worldly things. And then also see how many times we are able to develop a virtuous mind, and how many times we were under the influence of afflictive emotions. Anger, for instance. How many times did we lose our temper in the past 1 week? How many times desire arose within us? How many times this mind of covetousness arose within us? How many times we felt greedy? How many times we felt jealous, competitiveness, dissatisfaction, discontent? And then in terms of our physical actions and verbal actions, if we go through the 10 non-virtue, how many did we engage in? Of course, we may not have engaged in killing or, killing for sure, but how about stealing? Yes, we didn't burgle into another house, but what about at office? Did you take a paper clip from the office? Did you use the office paper for your own thing? Or those who are working in, what is that called? Hotels. What is that term now? I cannot remember now. When you take care of the hotel rooms, did you take anything from there? Did you take away towels? Did you take away tissue papers? How about those who are working in the hospitals? Did you take home any syringe, gloves, plasters, any pills? So this does not require you to burgle into another's house, but these are taken without permission, without you are entitled. So these become stealing, act of stealing. How about sexual misconduct? Then how about lying? Even a white lie? How about harsh speech? Were you able to restrain from using harsh speech? Divisive speech? How about idle gossip? Did you have a gathering over the weekend? Did you meet any friends? If you do, what did you talk about? Did you talk about politics? Did you talk about yesterday's protests? So when you really examine closely, we find that we have been consistently engaging in non-virtue, and our time spent on virtue is so little. So that creates a discrepancy, that creates a gap between our fundamental desire and our action. Fundamentally, we desire happiness and do not want to experience suffering. We aspire to be free from suffering, but look at our action. We know about karma. We just talked about perseverance. But look at us. So when we encounter suffering, it shouldn't be a surprise. Looking at the way we act. Of course, what we do now is not the cause of what we are suffering at the moment. But if we are behaving this way in this life, then we must be acting similar in the past life. Apple does not fall far from the tree, isn't it? So, the whole purpose of this is, what happened? Why weren't we able to commit our time and effort in Dharma practice? What is the real cause? What is the underlying reason, underlying cause? I think it boils down to the three types of laziness. Remember, the laziness of procrastination, laziness of attachment to ordinary activity, laziness of self-denigration. But amongst the three, for most of us, it is actually the attachment to the ordinary activity. We treasure the worldly endeavors so much so that we have no time for other things. When it comes to fulfilling the worldly pursuit or the Dharma practice, we always have no hesitation in choosing the worldly endeavor. And then procrastination. Maybe some of you thought about doing some real practice, but then procrastination took over. You decided, okay, maybe today I will do something else, and I will do next Sunday, next weekend. But are you sure that you will be alive to carry out that practice next weekend? There's no guarantee. So now I think we have already discussed the antidotes against the three laziness. So I'm not going to repeat here. So now we are going to discuss how to practice spontaneous, joyous perseverance. It says, as a seasoned warrior approaches a sword fight with an enemy, I shall parry the blows of the afflictions and strongly strike the afflictions, my enemies. So here the perseverance is not for the worldly things. For worldly things, we don't need to really put effort in having or in cultivating perseverance. We naturally have that perseverance. Here, the perseverance we are trying to cultivate is to engage in Dharma. So here, Dharma is mainly about abandoning or discarding the negative karma or negative action and to cultivate the positive actions, the positive karma, the virtuous deeds. So how should we approach that endeavor? Here says that in Shantideva says that we should approach it as if we are in a fight. We should act like an experienced warrior. So how does an experienced warrior engage in a sword fight with an enemy? Is that he has to do two things. Not just attacking the opponent. He also have to be very skillful in defending the opponent's blows or strikes. While defending the other's blow, one has to skillfully attack one's opponent. So likewise, when it comes to Dharma practice, we have to find a skillful means to discard negative actions. We should find a way, means to restrain ourselves from committing negative actions. While doing that, we should also cultivate virtue. So it is a two-pronged thing. If we engage virtues only and being reckless about committing negative actions, then it destroys the purpose. It defies the whole purpose of Dharma practice. It is what is in Tibetan we call Kangji Laksup. So you wanted to make some prints, footprints, but your hand wipes it off. So what is the purpose? So here it says, as a seasoned warrior approaches a sword fight with an enemy, I shall parry the blows of the afflictions and strongly strike the afflictions, my enemies. So not only we should avoid being affected by the afflictions, we should also strike the afflictions. We should apply antidote so that there is no room for the afflictions to arise. So how can we do that? That is fully contingent or dependent on the degree of mindfulness we have. So another example here is, if you drop your sword in battle, out of fear you quickly pick it up. Likewise, if I lose my weapon of mindfulness, in fear of hell, I quickly retrieve it. So our success of warding off the impact of afflictions is completely dependent on how mindful we are. So the analogy here is that if you are in a fight with somebody and if you drop your sword, how quickly will you try to retrieve that? Because your life depends on it. You have nothing to defend yourself. You have nothing to fight that opponent. So the first thing you would do is, as soon as you drop the weapon, you drop your sword, you will try to retrieve it. You will try to pick it up as quickly as possible. Likewise, when it comes to battling afflictive emotions, we should also try not to lose the weapon of mindfulness. Always be mindful. So if we are able to make a determination in the morning, it helps to set the motion in place. It paves the way for us to be mindful throughout the day. So we have to remind us that if I lose this weapon, like the one who is in the fight, because he fears that if he is unable to retrieve the sword, his life is in danger. He would die. Likewise, we have to remind us that if I lose this mindfulness, then I may end up in a suffering existence in the future. I will engage in negative actions that will result in unpleasant experiences which I don't want to experience. So the main point here is that always be mindful. And then not only mindfulness, we need to have the introspection, introspective awareness, or the vigilance. So without vigilance, we will forget. We won't even realize that our weapon of mindfulness have already been lost for some time. But when we are able to have that vigilance, that metacognition, or that introspection, then we will be able to be mindful all the time. Just as you would quickly jump up if a snake slithers into your lap. If a sleepiness and laziness come, quickly chase them away. What would we do? Of course, some people love snakes. Some people have snakes for pet. That's different. But people like me who are scared of snake, the moment a snake falls into my life, I would quickly stand up and run away from that. I will quickly throw the snake away because I'm scared of it. So likewise, with our introspection, when we realize that we have lost this weapon of mindfulness, we bring it back as quick as possible, as fast as the way we do with a snake if fallen on our lap. So here, one cause of our what do you call hindrance of our hindrance, one that hinders our practice, spiritual pursuit, is laziness, sleepiness. So we have to employ that introspection to see whether we are being lazy, whether we are being sleepy, whether we are spending so much time on these worldly things, whether we are being procrastinated, whether we are having this self-denigration. So we have to use this introspection to see why, what is happening, why we are not doing. So as soon as we realize the cause, we should immediately apply the antidotes, which we discussed in our earlier segment. So that's how, let's say that's one way to practice spontaneous, joyous perseverance. If we are able to do that, then this perseverance will follow suit. And then we will be able to fill that gap. Remember the discrepancy between our desire, fundamental desire, and our action. Then we will be able to fill that gap. If we really put effort, maybe towards the end of our life, we have something to show. Even if not, at least we will not die of regret, because we have spent all the time we have in Dharma practice. We have done our best. Otherwise, when we are on our deathbed, we will be regretting so much. I should have done that. I should have done that. I should have practiced some more. I should have done my prayers well. I should have finished doing this recitation. That's too late. And it will not help. How to use perseverance to make the mind and body serviceable. The one reason why we have all these obstacles is that our mind and body are not serviceable. We are unable to work our body and mind as we desire to. So one way to help this, one way to make our body and mind serviceable is by developing joy in what we are doing. That is, the coming and going of the wind carries cottonwood fluff along. Likewise, the power of joy in virtue completes everything in this way. So the way a wind carries the cottonwood fluff, it is so light, so wherever the wind blows, it also follows the direction of the wind. If the wind is blowing from the east, it will go to the west. So the wind has the power. So likewise, if we have this joy in doing virtue, then it will propel us. So we can ride on that joy. We won't feel resistance. We will not feel lethargy, laziness, and all that. We will be all the time pursuing and engaging in virtue. So it is so important to find joy in doing virtue. Not only just virtue, even your work, we know from our experience. If you don't like what you are doing, it is very stressful. You dread to go to work. Whereas if you find meaning and purpose in your work, if you find joy in what you are doing, so you look forward to going to work. And when it is off day, you feel like, what a waste. Remember, like the sports that you enjoy playing. If you have this kind of activity coming in a day, you will be counting the days, eagerly waiting for that day to arrive. Even that requires you to wake up like 3 a.m. No problem, because you enjoy doing that. You enjoy playing that game. So it's all it's all on our mind. So in terms of Dharma practice, how do we find joy in spiritual practice? That is to reflect the advantages, the benefits of practicing Dharma. How Dharma is the only source of happiness. How Dharma is the only cure for our misery. How Dharma is the only antidote against negative actions that give rise to suffering and pain. So when we are able to contemplate on this repeatedly, then we will see the benefits, we will see the merits of practicing Dharma, and this will result in developing that joy. And with that joy, we can do anything else. We can do long retreats. It is very important. Even your sadhanas, if you see the benefits, then it's different. You will really do it from your heart. You will really spend time on doing your sadhana. Otherwise, it becomes kind of a chore that you have to do it. So you try to finish it as soon as possible, as fast as possible. You don't really enjoy doing it. Because I have taken this initiation, I have to do it. But if you see the benefit, then it's different. You don't care about how much it takes, how long it takes. You enjoy doing that. So I'm again stressing on the importance of finding joy. So find a way to cultivate that joy, and then you will experience the difference. So that's on the chapter of perseverance. Now we go to the next verse, which is on the perfection of concentration. So it says, Shine rabdo tembe laudongji nyomo nambaran jomba she chene sume shile yangda dewayi samden gomba gyase laglen yins. Understanding that disturbing emotions are destroyed by special insight with calm abiding, cultivate concentration which surpasses the four formless absorptions. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. So now we are talking about cultivating the concentration. So since this is a Bodhisattva's practice, we are trying to develop a particular concentration. So this concentration differs from ordinary concentration in terms of its purpose and goal. So the Bodhisattvas have to engage in concentration, has to develop this concentration because they need to achieve enlightenment. So in order to achieve enlightenment, we need to cut or eradicate the root cause of samsara. We need to really, extirpate the main cause, which is the two graspings. So that one, we need to have a very powerful wisdom. Just concentration cannot. Remember, I always use that sword, that axe. If we are to cut down a tree, first of all, we need to have a sharp axe. If the axe is not sharp, then no matter how much effort you put, it's not going to cut down the tree. And even if the axe is very sharp, but if it is not used by a steady hand, then another problem. In order to cut a tree, you need to hit at the same spot. So if the hand is not stable, so you will be hitting all over the place. So there will be no time for that tree to really get cut. So we need two things. One, we need a sharp axe, and another is the steady hand. Likewise, in order to achieve enlightenment, we need to have the wisdom, realizing emptiness, which is the direct antidote to the two self-graspings. And then we need, like the steady hand, we need a concentration that can remain stable, which does not fluctuate or does not waver. So for that, we need to develop this particular concentration. So here it says cultivate concentration which surpasses the four formless absorptions. So we talk about in samsara, there are three realms: the desire realm, form realm, and formless realm. So the formless realm, the concentrations they have developed, is even subtler Because when you are able to develop that kind of concentration, you no longer experience the the feeling of suffering, feeling of pain, even the feeling of joy and pleasant experience is also a source of suffering. So for them, what they experience is what is called the neutral or the equanimity. So the purpose of Bodhisattvas developing concentration is not to develop that. That is because that is actually a cause to be born in samsara. So Bodhisattva's concentration surpasses that. Bodhisattva's concentration is to develop this special insight that is combined with the calm abiding. With that, we will be able to sever the that root cause of suffering, root cause of samsara. And then through through meditation, through persistent, through continuation of the meditation, then we will be able to remove the two obstacles and thereby achieve enlightenment. So, what is concentration? So this one, for this, the king of the concentration is Shamathi, Shamatha, translated as calm abiding. So since we have not covered this topic in the Lamrim topic sections, so I am going to kind of elaborate this a little bit. So first, what is calm abiding? Calm abiding. In Tibetan, it's called Shine. Shine. Shi means to be free from all distractions. Ne means to abide, to remain stable. So it says calm abiding is a virtuous, one-pointed state of mind that stays fixed on its object of meditation without distraction to other things. So basically, a power of mind that can remain on one object single-pointedly for as long as you wish. At the moment, we cannot even focus on an object even for 1 minute, let alone for as long as we wish. Because of that, there's so much distraction. Because of that, we cannot do our practice properly. So there may be many techniques, but the mainly is all comes down to two: mindfulness and vigilance. So a technique in which your attention is not distracted from whatever it has as its original object of meditation. So mindfulness is one of the core technique in terms of cultivating calm abiding. Without mindfulness, there's no way. We have to first be mindful. We have to remember to focus on that object. And then vigilance, which always kind of spies our mind, whether our mind is wandering or not. Because when we develop karma biting, there are two obstacles, which we will discuss later: the excitation and laxity. So vigilance is the one that watches for these. As soon as excitation arises, then vigilance will notice, and then we have to apply the appropriate antidotes. Likewise, when the laxity, our mind sinks into laxity, then we should apply appropriate antidotes. Without vigilance, we won't be able to be aware of whether or not these two obstacles are arising within us. So in Lamrim Chemo, the karma abiding, how to train in karma abiding, is taught under three headings. So first, relying on the preconditions for shamatha. It's like, what are the preconditions? Before we go on to doing the actual meditations, what are the prerequisites? And then once we have secured those conditions, then how do we cultivate? And then once we follow the steps, and what are the measures, what are the signs that we have achieved the shamatha? So it is taught under three headings. Let's try to go through each of the three. So the first, this is very important, the preconditions. Because if we are unable to fulfill these criteria, no matter how hard and diligent we persevere, it is unlikely to succeed in our cultivation of shamatha. So first we really need to fulfill these criteria. So first is dwelling in an appropriate area. So there's no way you can train in Shamathi at your home, where you have children and all that chaos. So we need to find a place, remote place, and that place need to be free from harms. That's why it's an appropriate area. Appropriate in a sense that you have easy access to basic needs, and then it is free of wild animals, dangers to your life from robbers and all that. So we need to find an appropriate area, place, which is free from harm and has easy access to our basic necessities, And then having little desire, even if we are able to find a place that is remote, that is cut off from the crowd, from the community, but if we still have all kinds of desires, then it's not going to succeed. Desire has no limit, and then our mind will keep following our desires, and we won't be able to really do a good meditation. So that's why we need to really apply antidote to cut down any of these desires. Being content, that's important. You have to be content, because when you are in a retreat, you have very little comfort. You have very little things. The facility is not that great compared to what we used to have. There will be no air condition, there will be no heater. Remember those meditators who goes into the forest, deep into the forest, deep into the mountain. And they, like Milarepa, is in a cave. It was in a cave. There's no air condition. There is no washroom. So we have to, satisfied with, we have to be content with what little we have, what small place we have, what little facility we have. Otherwise, we will find so many complaints. Oh, this is not enough. I need this, I need that. And then, that would be a distraction for us from our practice. And then completely giving up many activities. Even if you are in a remote area and if you like to do all kinds of things which are not related to your training of shamatha, if you like to engage in activities that are worldly, then of course that's another hindrance. You won't get anywhere, any far from your practice, because you will be so consumed by doing all these activities. So we need to give up all these unnecessary, unrelated activities. And then practicing pure ethical discipline. Even with all this, if you are not able to observe a pure ethical discipline, that will be another hindrance. So you will be, for example, if you are not careful of what your mind is going after, what your speech is, what kind of speech you are engaging in. So all these creates negative karmas, and it can even get you into trouble. So this can be an obstacle. And then finally, completely ridding yourself of thoughts of desire and so on. Then whatever afflictive emotions arises, we have to fight that, we have to counter that, we have to tackle that. We should not let all this arise. We should apply appropriate antidotes so that we are not consumed by these afflictive emotions. So these are the prerequisites. With these conditions fulfilled, only then we can begin our training. So when it comes to training, so the main method is through what is called the 8 antidotes, identifying the 5 faults and then applying the antidotes. So we will discuss this later. But first, before we go into the 8 antidotes, we need to understand these 2 main obstacles. These are the 2 obstacles that taught us from developing karma binding. So we really need to understand what these 2 are. Otherwise, when these arise, we won't be able to recognize, we won't be able to identify. If we fail to identify, we will also fail to apply the appropriate antidotes, and thereby we will be unsuccessful. So what are these excitation? Here I wrote excitement as excitation. So excitation, it is an unquiet state of mind, considered a derivative of attachment, which pursues pleasant objects and acts as an impediment to meditative serenity. So this is kind of technical definition, but basically it's the mind wandering. Our mind wanders. When we try to place our mind on a particular object, it does not remain on that particular object. It keeps wandering. It keeps moving from that particular object to other things. It goes after all kinds of pleasant objects, desirable things. So that's what is called excitation. So there are two kinds of excitation, the gross and the subtle. That is very important to identify, differentiate between these two. So the gross excitation is what we call the mind wandering, like the monkey mind. It jumps from one object to another object. That is very easy to identify. We know that our mind has wandered. But the subtle excitation is, even though we are able to focus on there, but at the side, some things, I think if those you have been doing meditation, you know that from your experience you can tell that even though you haven't lost the focus, you haven't lost that object, but at the side there is another thought occurring. Something else is occurring. That is the subtle excitation. And then laxity, that is another one that hinders our concentration. Your mind's way of apprehending the object of meditation is slack, and it does not apprehend the object with much vividness or firmness. So this is, let's say, if we are feeling sleepy, out of sleepiness, out of lethargy, when we try to focus on an object, so we don't get a clear picture of that image. We fail to have a clear, oh, I don't have any, I thought I have something else. Anyway, never mind. So we fail to have a clear picture. So the gross, this also has two types. The gross laxity is like blackout, is like a blind person. You don't see even though you are sitting there, you are trying to meditate, but you don't really see the object of your meditation. So that happens when you are very sleepy. You lose that one. You don't see it. You don't see the object. So that's the gross. Subtle is very, what do you call? It's very hard to identify. So subtle laxity is, even though you can see the whatever object there, but there is no strength, there is no firmness. That's why it's the object with much vividness or firm. So vividness is the gross. If you lose that vividness, that's the gross. But even though you see something there, you have the visual, not visual, you have the vividness there, but your mind has no strength. It doesn't hold onto that. There is no enthusiasm, there is no firmness. That is the subtle laxity. So we need to understand these differences. Then when you do meditation, you will recognize that, oh, now the subtle laxity is setting in. I better apply the antidote. Sometimes what happens is many people mistake the subtle laxity as the concentration, and they think that, oh, they have arrived somewhere else, but actually they are sinking into laxity. So we need to understand that. So now, what are the 8 antidotes? What are the 5 faults? So of course, first one is laziness. and then forgetting the instructions. Even if we are not lazy, sometimes we forget the instruction. We forget what we are supposed to focus on. So we forget the object. And then laxity and anxiety, even though we are able to remember the instructions, but laxity and excitation hinders our practice, our meditation. So forgetting the instructions is mindfulness. For laxity and excitation is the vigilance. Antidote is the vigilance. Vigilance will help us identify, help us recognize that this is happening, and then we can apply the antidotes. And then non-application. Sometimes what happens is when we need to apply antidotes, there are obstacles arising. The subtle laxity is arising. But if we fail to apply the antidote, so that's also a fault. So when this arrives, the antidote is to apply the antidote. And then sometimes when you reach a certain degree, you don't need to apply any antidotes because you are doing well. But if you over-apply, over-vigilant, over-mindful, that affects your meditation. So at that kind of situation, we should be able to maintain equanimity. So the first, laziness, there are 4 particular antidotes. So how does that counter laziness? Let's look at it. So first is the developing the faith in the value of Shamathi. Okay, I think maybe we can go backward. So the laziness is this, the lack of pliancy. Your mind wants something, but your body doesn't want to follow that. Sometimes you want to do, but then you don't really feel like. So you cannot employ your body and mind as you desire. So that is because you haven't developed what is called pliancy. So when we are able to develop pliancy, then we can perform whatever we want. Someday, what is the word? Tangna, shana ri, what's that? Now I cannot remember. And then anyway, yeah, so we need to develop. Once we have pliancy, then laziness has no room. So in order to develop this physical and mental pliancy, we need to apply perseverance. We need to persevere. We need to put effort. We need to put effort in countering the 2 obstacles. We need to always watch out for laxity and excitation, and then we apply. We put effort in applying the antidotes. So in order to really persevere in this endeavor, we need to have this aspiration to achieve shamatha. So when you have a strong aspiration, then you will be able to put up with any challenges. You will be willing to put effort. So that's why first we need to develop that aspiration. We need to cultivate the aspiration to achieve shamatha. And how does that arise? that arises after or upon seeing the benefits, the value, developing the faith in the value of shamatha. So what are the benefits? So when you have shamatha, we develop this suppleness, both in our mind and body. We can remain in meditation for hours, for days. We won't feel that exhaustion. We won't feel tiredness. There will be joy. So it's wonderful, isn't it, to have that kind of suppleness, that kind of energy. And then once we have achieved shamatha, once we have achieved calm abiding, we can achieve other attainments, worldly attainments, such as what is called like divine eye, divine ear. So divine eye is like ability to see beyond ordinary vision. If ordinary people can see up to, let's say, 200 feet, but with that you can see for miles and miles. And then ear, you can hear, ability to hear beyond our our ordinary hearing range. And then we will be able to recollect, we will remember our past lives. And then we will also have power to perform various feats, miraculous power. So these are worldly attainments. But the best is through shamatha, through calm abiding, we can achieve any goals, any spiritual goals. If you want to do a retreat of Manjushri, the retreat will be so perfect. Even if you do Tantra practice, daily visualization, because you have developed this stability, whatever benefits is mentioned, we will be able to reap that benefit because our practice will be faultless. And then through shamatha, we will be able to gain insight. We will be able to realize emptiness. And through emptiness, insight into emptiness, we will be able to free ourselves from samsara and eventually achieve enlightenment. So these are the benefits. So when we think of these benefits, we will be able to develop faith in the value of shamatha. With the faith in shamatha, we will aspire to achieve shamatha. If we hear of something great, let's say a new car is in the market, and if we see so many benefits of that car, what that car can do, of course we want to acquire one, isn't it? That's how the markets do. That's the whole purpose of the advertisements. So they will, what is that word now? They will extol the benefits of that item, which makes us want them. So exactly here, when we are able to see the benefits, we will want to achieve shamatha. So when we have that kind of aspiration, we will be able to put effort, and through effort we will achieve physical and mental pliancy, and that will lead to shamatha. That will counter the laziness. So now the question about when we begin meditation, so what what object should we use? Of course, we can use anything, flowers, tables, vase, any object. But since we are doing a kind of a spiritual practice, it is advised to use a Buddha's image. So doing that, we achieve two purposes. First, of course, it serves as an object of your meditation. Secondly, because we are focusing on a Buddha's image, we accumulate merit. So it's good, isn't it? So now the question is, where should we visualize? How far should we visualize? At what level we should? So he says, the body of a chosen deity is visualized. If we are choosing to use the Buddha's image, then one arm span, so which is roughly 4 feet, some text is 4 feet. One arm span in front of oneself, about the size of thumb tip. When we do Shamatha or calm abiding meditation, the image we should not, the size of the image should be small. Otherwise, it will be scattered. So the narrower, the better. So he says the size of a thumb tip, which is like 2 inches. And then very dense. We have to imagine that statue quite heavy. Actual Buddha, they're heavy. Otherwise, distraction will arise. If it's too light, it can move around. But if we visualize as dense and heavy, then it helps us to maintain our focus. And then emanating light, that's also help us to counter laxity. Radiant, and which level? You have choices. At the level of one's forehead, or heart, or navel, in accordance with the meditator's inclination and comfort, whichever you find more comfortable. For some people, visualizing at the level of one's forehead is more comfortable. But for others, maybe visualizing at the heart is more comfortable. So that's individual choice. So we are okay. So now the actual stages in which the mental state develops. So the main method is that 5 folds, identifying the 5 folds, and then applying the 8 antidotes. So when we apply this, then there is a stages how we progress to the calm abiding. So there are 9 stages. I think we will start that in the next session. I think our time is already up. We will stop here. Thank you. Let's dedicate our merits. Tāki jīnyī sākvē gyāwā dē tēndā ndrōwā kuṇlā kāngbēn tāng gyāvārā chēzhūn lōsān tāwā yī tēmbē nyingbō rīndō sēcē shō jāmbē bāwē chēdārā kēmbā tāng kundō Zangpo tēyāng dēshēn tēdā guēngē jēsō tālō jē gyāwā dēdā tāmjē rābdō ngō Tuzun shekbe gyawa tamje ngowa kanla jodo ngaba. Dagi gewe zawa degwen ja sangbo chuji rabdo ngowar ki. Thank you.